Karoline Leavitt never imagined she'd find herself in this situation. It had been years since she and Sarah had last spoken, back when they were inseparable childhood friends in their small New Hampshire town. But when Karoline received a message from Sarah out of the blue, asking for help, she didn't hesitate to meet up. What Karoline discovered when she arrived at Sarah's apartment left her speechless. The woman she once knew was now struggling to keep up with rent, her once vibrant spirit worn thin by the pressures of life. The shock came not from the situation itself, but from what Karoline chose to do next, something no one could have expected. Karoline stood in the dimly lit living room, the sound of the old fridge humming in the background as Sarah sat on the couch, her hands nervously twisting a tissue. The weight of the situation hung heavy in the air. "I don't know what to do, Karoline," Sarah said, her voice shaky. "I've been cutting back on everything, eating less, selling things online, but it's still not enough. I might have to leave, maybe go back to my parents' place, but I don't want to." Karoline's heart ached for her friend. They had shared so many memories growing up, their carefree days of playing in the park, sharing secrets late into the night. Now, to see Sarah in this state felt like a punch to the gut. But what could she do? She had always been more of a go-getter, focused on her career and life in the city. Her apartment was small, but at least it was stable. She couldn't imagine the stress Sarah was under, especially with her job at the local cafe barely covering her expenses. For a moment, Karoline felt a surge of helplessness, but then something clicked. "I can't let you go through this alone, Sarah," Karoline said quietly. "You're my friend, and I'm here. I know it's a lot, but what if we come up with a plan together?" Sarah's eyes widened in surprise. "A plan? But what can we really do?" Karoline took a deep breath, trying to push aside the doubts creeping into her mind. "I don't know yet, but I'll help you find a way out of this. Maybe I can help with rent at least for a few months while we figure things out. And maybe there's something else we can explore." Her words hung in the air. There was no easy fix to Sarah's situation. Karoline knew that. But as she looked at her friend, sitting there vulnerable and scared, she realized that sometimes the best way to help wasn't with a solution, but with a promise that no one should have to face their struggles alone. As the conversation continued, the two women began brainstorming, Karoline offering ideas, Sarah listing her worries. And with every passing minute, a small glimmer of hope began to form between them. Neither knew where the path would lead, but one thing was certain. Karoline wasn't going to let Sarah fall without a fight. The days that followed felt like a whirlwind of plans and late-night phone calls. Karoline kept her promise, offering not just financial help, but her time and energy to explore solutions with Sarah. They looked at affordable housing options, searched for higher-paying job opportunities, and even talked about moving in together temporarily to share the rent. But despite their best efforts, the weight of Sarah's situation didn't lighten as quickly as they had hoped. Sarah had always been independent, proud of her ability to take care of herself. But now, she found herself relying on Karoline in ways she never thought she would. One evening, after a long day of job hunting, Karoline sat with Sarah at the small kitchen table, a cup of tea in hand. The silence between them felt heavier than usual. "Karoline, I don't know if I can keep asking you for help," Sarah said, her voice quiet. "I feel like I'm drowning, and the more you do for me, the worse I feel." Karoline's heart sank. She knew Sarah had always been fiercely independent, but she also knew her friend wasn't the same woman she once was. The weight of her struggles was wearing her down in ways Karoline couldn't fully understand. "You're not asking for help, Sarah," Karoline said softly, setting her cup down. "You're allowing me to be here for you. And that's what friends do, right? We help each other, even when things are hard. It's not about keeping score. It's about supporting each other through tough times." Sarah looked down at the table, a tear slipping down her cheek. "I don't know how to get out of this. I feel like I'm stuck in this cycle, and I can't see a way out." Karoline reached across the table, taking Sarah's hand. "You're not alone in this, Sarah, and we're not going to stop looking for a way out until we find it. We'll figure this out together." It wasn't a solution. There was no magic fix that would immediately solve everything. But in that moment, Karoline realized something important. The real strength wasn't in solving every problem, but in showing up day after day and offering a steady hand when everything else seemed uncertain. Over the next few weeks, things began to slowly shift. Sarah found a new job, one that paid better, though it was still a struggle to make ends meet. Karoline helped her adjust to her new schedule, picking up groceries when she could, and even helping her organize a second-hand furniture sale to lighten the load. But the biggest change came when Karoline suggested they move in together. At first, Sarah was hesitant, unsure of the practicality of it, but after weeks of juggling bills and working long hours, she agreed. The weight of their shared living expenses brought a sense of relief, though it also meant they had to adjust to new boundaries and routines. As they sat together in their new shared apartment, a sense of quiet accomplishment filled the room. It wasn't perfect, but it was a start. One evening, as they sat on the couch, sipping tea and talking about the future, Karoline looked at Sarah with a smile. "I never thought we'd end up here together like this." Sarah laughed softly, her eyes bright with a mix of exhaustion and gratitude. "I didn't either, but I think we needed to get here. I think we both needed each other." For a brief moment, the heaviness of the last few months seemed to lift. They hadn't solved everything, but they had made it through the hardest part. And with each day that passed, they knew they were one step closer to truly getting back on their feet, together. Months passed, and Sarah and Karoline's lives slowly began to stabilize. The apartment, though modest, became a sanctuary for both of them. The walls were filled with memories of their late-night talks and shared moments of laughter, both lightening the burden of the challenges they had faced. Sarah's new job provided a steady income, and with Karoline's support, she had even begun saving again, something she hadn't been able to do in a long time. But as much as Sarah had grown stronger, Karoline noticed a change in herself too. She had never been someone to focus too much on her personal life, always focused on work, always on the move. But the experience of supporting Sarah had opened her eyes to what really mattered. There was something deeply fulfilling about being there for someone, not just in the good times, but in the hard ones too. One evening, as they sat on the couch after dinner, Sarah turned to her with a thoughtful expression. "Karoline," she said, "I don't know how I would have gotten through this without you. You've done so much for me, and I just want you to know how grateful I am." Karoline smiled, her heart warm with the sincerity in Sarah's voice. "You don't have to thank me, Sarah. I'm just glad I could help. We've always had each other's backs, haven't we?" Sarah nodded, her eyes reflecting a mixture of gratitude and sadness. "Yeah, but I don't want you to feel like you have to keep doing this for me. I know I'm getting better, and I'm starting to feel like myself again. I don't want to keep relying on you forever." Karoline understood the unspoken words. Sarah was ready to stand on her own 2 feet again, and as much as it pained her to admit it, Karoline knew this was the next step. Her friend had grown, and now it was time for her to step into a new chapter, one where she no longer needed constant support. "You don't have to worry, Sarah," Karoline said softly. "I'm proud of how far you've come, and I'll always be here, but I know you're ready to take the next step. You don't need to rely on me anymore." Sarah looked at her, a small smile spreading across her face. "You're right. I'm ready." A sense of peace settled between them. Their journey wasn't over, but it had come to a place where they could stand on their own, knowing they had each other's support in the background. The following weeks were filled with small victories for Sarah. She got a promotion at her job, and though it didn't solve everything, it was a sign that her hard work and persistence were paying off. Karoline watched with pride as Sarah slowly became the woman she once was: strong, independent, and confident. As summer approached, Sarah found a new apartment closer to work. The move was bittersweet for both of them, but Karoline was happy to see Sarah reclaim her independence. They spent the day packing boxes, reminiscing about the old days, and laughing over old memories. When it was time to say goodbye, Karoline helped Sarah carry the last box out to her car. "I'm going to miss having you around all the time," Karoline said, a touch of sadness in her voice. "I'll miss it too," Sarah replied. "But this is the right step, Karoline. We both know it. I'll still need you, just not in the same way. And I'll always be here if you need me." Karoline smiled, a mixture of emotions flooding her chest. "You've got this, Sarah. I'm proud of you." And as Sarah drove off to her new place, Karoline stood there for a moment, watching her friend take the next step in her life. She felt a sense of pride, both for Sarah, who had fought so hard to rebuild, and for herself, for having been there when it mattered most. It wasn't a perfect ending, but it was a real one. Their paths would continue to diverge and intersect in new ways, but Karoline knew one thing for sure. No matter where life took them, they would always have each other's backs.